Hello, my name is Daniel from the Actuarial Department, and today I'll be discussing a study from Australia that has applications for us here in Europe. In 2019, 92 million people in the European Union were classified as at risk of poverty or social exclusion. This is a staggering 21% of the population, and a large proponent of this comes from young, vulnerable children unable to break out of the poverty cycle as they enter adulthood. We need to act now to support these at-risk cohorts. To assist with this, I would like to draw your attention to a study from Australia. New South Wales is the most populous state in Australia, and in 2016, the New South Wales government commissioned an actuarial firm to construct a model with the purpose of identifying vulnerable groups that require more support, estimating the cost of government services aimed at improving vulnerable children's futures, and evaluating the effectiveness of these services. To help the at-risk population here, we can adapt this Australian model to suit our needs. So I will discuss the data, the modelling, and some results of the Australian study and how this could apply for us. Firstly, the model draws data from government services such as child protection, medical benefits, and welfare. A dataset was created that lists every individual recording which services they have used and when. Service usage history and demographic factors create a historical pathway through government services for every person in the dataset. With this understanding of the data, we can now discuss how the modelling works. Everyone has a story leading up to who they are today, and the model uses a person's past, compares it to similar individuals, and assesses the likely future pathways for that person. Using machine learning algorithms, the model identifies patterns to project future usage of government services for every person in the dataset. This lets us assess which factors lead to certain outcomes, such as the likelihood of getting through secondary school or needing housing support. We can categorize these individuals into various groups to produce aggregate level results, which I will discuss next. One group of interest is vulnerable children, classified as children under age 5 with parental or perinatal risk factors or being at risk of significant harm. This is about 1 in 4 children in New South Wales. We can identify which pathways or risk factors are most common for vulnerable children. These include parents facing the justice system, mothers smoking during pregnancy, or the child having a concern report. With this knowledge, the New South Wales government is able to target key areas to address. The model also predicts their usage of government services, costing a total of €74,000 per vulnerable child. Additionally, the model projects likely future outcomes based on the past history of an individual. For example, the model found that children under age 5 with no risk factors are 71% likely to complete secondary school and only 11% likely to become at risk of severe harm in the future. On average, they will use €23,000 each in support services by age 40. By contrast, children with 5 risk indicators are only 15% likely to complete school, whilst being 93% likely to be at risk of severe harm in the future, and will likely cost the government almost €500,000 each. More broadly, the model estimates that the average cost per person to government services is €29,000 per person, but only 7% of young people are using half of all the government resources in New South Wales. The majority of funding was for welfare and medical benefits. These data-driven insights are powerful, but no model is without limitations, which I will briefly address. For the Australian study, some historical data was only available for people up to age 27, so extrapolation was used. Certain government datasets were also not available, so assumptions were made based on usage by demographic. Finally, there is the possibility that the most vulnerable people are unable to access support services and are therefore not detected in the dataset. In our application of the model, the biggest challenge would be obtaining similar data. We should consider any structural or cultural differences that may impact how our citizens use our support services also. We may have different standards of healthcare, schooling, or different willingness to use social services. We need to consider how we measure outcomes here as opposed to Australia. Overall, this model has allowed Australia to identify vulnerable groups and their needs. It uses data from various government services to project future outcomes for Australians, particularly children. It shows that in Australia, parents facing the justice system and smoking during pregnancy are common factors amongst vulnerable children who are likely to face worse future outcomes. The model has also helped identify resource usage and projects future costs of providing support services. We could apply similar analysis to help answer questions about our own country. Who needs what? Which factors limit the success of our young children? And how much will it cost to support them? Adapting this model could give us an increased understanding of our own country, but more importantly, we can use the power of data to take a step in the right direction to help tackle poverty in our nation. Thank you.